グロッセリー、食料品の値上げ 16% ということなんですが、どうでしょうか。皆さんこんにちは。
こんにちは。
はい、今日はダディの久しぶりにダディのイギリスのアップデートをしていきたいと思いますね。So what's happening?
What's happening? Okay, what's happening? Strikes. That's what's happening. Many sectors are experiencing strikes, industrial action. There's so many that newspapers are publishing handy schedules so that you can consult day by day to find out who's on strike today and who's on strike tomorrow. For example, today the driver and vehicle licensing authorities on strike. Some staff at the British Museum are also on strike, so it's a relatively strike-free day today. But
そうですね。なんかもっとある日は学校が休みになったりとかもあるので、学校の先生がお休みされたりとかして、うちの子供たちは私立に行っているので、公立じゃないのでお休みじゃなかったんですね。
Yeah.
なので。
So who's been on strike? Who's continuing to take industrial action? Okay, are you ready for the list? Nurses, teachers, ambulance drivers, courtroom staff, barristers, driving instructors, vehicle examiners, train drivers, bus drivers, various other civil servants, university staff, NHS physios, staff at the British Museum. I mean, lots and lots of different sectors.
ですね。いろんなセクターの人が。
So,
ストライキやってるそうです。うちのところでストライキやってるのを見たりとか、あと
and teachers.
学校の先生がストライキやって、
So if you support them when you drive past, you should toot your horn, you know.
でそのストライキをサポートするんだったらプップップって鳴らしてあげたらイエーって旗を振ってくれるというね。
Yeah. So why are they on strike? Well, inflation is around 10%. Grocery prices have gone up around 16%. Wage increases are running at around 2 or 3%.
So it's not enough.
Yeah, so it's not enough. I mean, you know, even some people who are in full-time employment are struggling to pay their bills.
なんかyou told me the school teacher they have to depend on the food bank.
Some, not all.
政府の発表によると食料品の値上げ 16% ということなんですが、
You probably remember in the 1970s when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister, she had a big fight with the unions, in particular the miners, okay, but other trade unions as well, because of the power they had in British industry, okay. She basically won that fight with the unions then, you know, at the end of the 70s. Now the government is trying to take a similar approach to resist union demands for wage increases. This time the government is not getting widespread support from the public. Okay, most of the public supports, for example, the nurses to get greater pay rises. So, you know, the government's got a real problem with this ongoing industrial action.
そうですね。But I can see that though, people that like nurse and school teachers doesn't get paid enough. I think they should say something, and they have a right to do this.
Yeah. So,
strike. と思います。グロッセリー、食料品の値上げ 16% ということなんですが、どうでしょうか。トマト、1ポンド49。こういうポテトとかはそんなに変わってないと思いますね。2.5 キロで250円ぐらい。チェスターマッシュルームが200円ぐらいですね。カリフラワー買っとこうか。 ちょっとブロッコリー高くなってるかな。1袋が300円ぐらいか、300円ちょっとか。3つでだからそんなに高くはなってないような気がしますね。このチキンにしても3つで10ポンドですって。何が必要かな。ベーコンか。スモークじゃない方がいい。ベーコンが2つで5ポンド。あ、でもちょっと高くなってるな。2つで5ポンドだから。サーモンとこのラムチョップを買おうかって言ってるんですけども、ラムチョップはキロ15ポンド2000円ぐらいかな。今肉屋さんでこの肉フィレステーキとチョップラムチョップとあと魚サーモンとこのフィッシュパイを買いました。フィッシュパイがだいたい1000円ぐらいかな、一つが。ちょっと高くなったといえば高くなったかもしれません。なんかリアがフレンチトリップに行くんですね。だからちょっとスナックが必要らしいのでスナックを買ってあげようと思います。これ買おうかな。
Leah likes these.
Yeah. And Leah likes this one too. これはね、すごいすぐなくなるので2つ買っときましょう。
My favourite.
でイギリスではこのウォーカーズのクリスプス、ポテトチップスって言わないでクリスプスって言うんですけど、すごいいろんな種類があって、この棚がすべてポテトチップスですね。これ12パックちっちゃいのが入って3ポンド500円ぐらいです。私たちはこのソルト&ビネガーが好きでこれを買いました。なんかダディがいつの間にかこれ入れています。ここにはカフェもあってよくお茶とかもあります。こちらがフードバンクですね。これはリサイクル。
The strikers have quite a lot of public support, in the case of the NHS in particular because of lack of investment over the last decade or so in social care and in the NHS itself. Talking about the NHS, Britain has quite a relatively low number of hospital beds per population. Chart here from The Economist. Right. In the UK, we've got 2.3 hospital beds per 1,000 population. Okay. In France, 5.7. Okay. In Germany, 7.8. There was some logic as to why the government and the NHS wanted fewer beds because they want to get people out of hospital as soon as possible by giving them good treatment, preventative treatment before people need to go to hospital, getting them treated in hospital quicker and getting them out of hospital into the community quicker as well so that people can recover at home, right? But to do that, you need investment in equipment, you need investment in IT systems, and you need investment in social care, and all those things are basically lacking in the UK. So other countries which have similar numbers of hospital beds, for example Denmark and Sweden, they have greater investments in their NHS, in their health service equipment, their IT systems, but also in social care once people leave hospital.
なんか 助産婦の方が私が智也を産んだ時に次の日に出ていけって言われたんですけれども、初めての子ですごい不安だったんですね。で次の日にもう退院しなきゃいけなくて、まだねリカバーしてないのに。でもミッドワイフと呼ばれている
ヘルスビジター、
ヘルスビジターって呼ばれている助産婦みたいな方が次の日から家に来てくださって、で子供のチェック、私のチェックをしてくださって、で体重とかも測ったりとか。なのでI thought that was okay.
Yeah, because you got the support you need. But you know, the initiative to try to make the health service more efficient, of course, is a good thing, right? But you've got to put the support in place in the community as well.
So they're lacking now.
Yes.
Social support.
So yes, exactly. So you know, Britain probably underestimated the fact that it's got an aging population, but also interestingly, in the Economist article where this chart came from, talking about the pressures of winter in a country which has old, poorly insulated housing stock. Okay.
Yeah, especially during this energy crisis.
Especially
people
during,
cannot
exactly.
turn on the heater.
Exactly. So this is an interesting chart, actually from the Financial Times. This one. Britain's housing stock is among the oldest and most poorly insulated in the developed world. Okay, so you can see here 40% of Britain's housing stock was built before 1945. Okay, 20% was built before 1919. Okay, so basically 20% of British housing stock is more than 100 years old. Right.
すごい
Some
古い家が多いんですよ、イギリスはね。
Some other European countries, I mean Belgium is similar, but you know some other European countries have old housing stock, but nowhere as old as the UK. All right, so we have a lot of housing which is old, poorly insulated. We also have quite a lot of housing which is in conservation areas. So you know, if you go to a beautiful town in the Cotswolds, or even sort of quite a few inner city areas. These conservation areas, often the homeowners are restricted in terms of what they can do to improve insulation in their homes. For example, that house we saw in Henley in Arden with those beautiful windows, right? The owner of that building almost certainly can't just replace those old glass windows with modern double glazing which is well insulated, because planning rules won't allow them to do that, because it would be in a conservation area. Also, interestingly, in this chart, Japan is right down the bottom there with almost no housing stock older than 1945.
ね、日本は古い家がほとんどないみたいですね。1945年以前のうちのおばあちゃんが住んでいた、祖母が住んでいた家は150年から200年前のものなんですけども、そういう建物はほとんど残ってないということですよね。
So then on the right hand side of this chart is a summary of heat loss from houses, from the housing stock in these various countries, assuming you start at 20 degrees centigrade inside the property when it's 0 outside, okay, and after 5 hours what's happened to the temperature. So in Norway the temperature would have dropped by 1 degree centigrade to 19 degrees centigrade. In the UK it would have dropped by more than 3 degrees.
なんかこのチャートをお見せするんですけど、面白いですよ。家の中が20度で外が0度だった場合、3時間後にどれだけ温度が落ちるかっていうことで、イギリスは5時間ね、5時間でどのぐらい家の中の温度が落ちるかっていうので、イギリスがやっぱりすごい一番3度下がりますね。
So we have an aging population, we have cold, poorly insulated housing stock, and we don't have adequate social care. Because we don't have good social care, hospital beds are full. You know, particularly elderly people, for example, but you know, people with other problems as well. If you end up in hospital, but you're fit to leave hospital, but you need social care at home, the social care, it doesn't totally not exist, but you know, it's hard to set up. All right, so there's a big percentage of hospital beds in the UK now which are full with people who are fit to be discharged from hospital, but they're not leaving hospital because the social care for them at home doesn't exist. So hospitals are full. So in accident and emergency departments, people are waiting a long time if they need to be admitted into hospital. So for patients who go into accident and emergency, who need to be admitted into a hospital ward, 7% of them are waiting in A&E for more than 12 hours. Okay.
なんかすごいよくニュースに聞くんですけど、lots of bad news about emergency service. You know, the injured elderly man has to wait 29 hours, or you know, because of this, he.
So you don't want to get sick at the moment. You don't want to have an accident.
なんかイギリスでは今病気になったりとか事故にあったりとかしたら本当に大変っていうことですよね。
The Royal College of Emergency Medicine estimates 300 to 500 excess deaths per week because of delays in A&E. It's a huge number. I was reading about this in The Economist magazine. That they've done their own analysis and they reckon the figure is about 260 per week. Whatever it is, it's clear that many people are dying every week because of delays in A&E.
A&E エマージェンシーサービスが人手が足りないとかベッドが足りないとか、ね、スタッフがの足りないとかでなかなか受けられない、待たなきゃいけないっていうことで、そのために亡くなってるっていうんですよね。
What does all this mean for the government? Well, it's not good. Okay, we have a new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. He promised to reintroduce trust into the government when he took over about 100 days ago. It's not going very well. He's had to sack the Chancellor of the Exchequer because he lied about an investigation into his tax affairs. That's a really big scandal. There have been other scandals ongoing. Boris Johnson just continues to be in the news. There's a lot of controversy about a personal loan that was arranged for him by somebody who Johnson then appointed to become chairman of the BBC. So suspicions of more corruption. There are many corruption stories coming out regarding the procurement of PPE equipment which medical staff needed to use during the pandemic. Johnson's travelling around pretending he's still Foreign Secretary or Prime Minister, visiting Ukraine and being a general irritation to the government. Liz Truss, do you remember her? She was Prime Minister for a brief period, right? She's reappeared with an article in the Daily Telegraph, basically blaming everybody else for the collapse of her government's policies, except her. So the Conservative Party seems to be continuing with a civil war, although Sunak is bringing a little bit of greater stability than we had previously. Latest opinion polls are bad for the Conservatives. They could, if there was a general election tomorrow, lose hundreds of seats in Parliament. They could even end up with fewer seats than the Scottish National Party. If that happened, you could see the SNP as the official opposition in government, which would be interesting. The economy narrowly avoided recession in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
Only just, but as per this chart, again from the Financial Times, Britain is the only G7 nation which has not recovered back to the levels of economic activity that we had immediately before the pandemic. Okay, it's not good. Also, I mean, I haven't even mentioned Brexit. Public opinion on Brexit continues to move in the direction of concluding that it was a really bad idea. Politicians seem to be starting to talk about it a bit more. There was apparently a secret meeting last week between senior politicians from both the Remain side and also the Leave side of the Brexit debate to discuss how Britain could move forward to improve its relationship with the EU and what can be done to improve Britain's economic performance, which is interesting. I mean, it was leaked to the press. Some of the Brexit lunatics, people like Nigel Farage, they're up in arms that politicians from both sides now are talking about how Britain could improve things. I guess that's it.
Okay.
Spring is coming.
Yes, I found it quite. People are talking about how the NHS is failing, a lot of people dying, eating or heating. Yeah, you know, the people suffer, not be able to put the heater on. But when なんか今生活してる上で you know, when we're they're doing normal life.Taking the kids to school, coming back, going out. All the expensive restaurants are full. All the expensive hotels are full. そうなんですよ。なんかすごいね、良くないニュースとか、本当いろんな人が亡くなってるとか、エマージェンシーサービス受けれない。でも本当にすごいミシュランの高いレストラン、一食で一人がね何万円もするようなレストラン、予約が取れないんですよ、いっぱいで。で、ホテルとかもいっぱい。で旅行もみんな予約が取れないぐらいいっぱいなんですよね。だから昔から思うんですけど、すごいやっぱり貧富の差がすっごい激しいと思います。このイギリスはヨーロッパの中でも激しいと思いますね。I think the gap between poor and rich is enormous here in England, compared to the place like Spain even.
For me, moving back to the UK for the first time in more than 30 years, you know, it really strikes me. Society seems really stressed, and you know, the divisions between London and the southeast and the rest of the country are really obvious.
本当にこれも驚いたのが、ロンドンとイギリスのこういう私たちが住んでいる別の都市のギャップが本当にすごいありますね。だからすごいインフラとか資金は全部なんかロンドンに行っているということで、他の都市の開発がなかなか進まないということですよね。なんかいろんな問題が目で見ることができたっていう感じですね。There was a good part in England.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I
But,
enjoy living in England. なんか人々も優しいし、こういう田舎はね。The people are really kind and nice.
A lot of people are really struggling. It's not a good time.
ということですね。
But spring is on the way.
そうですね。朝も日がすごい。朝起きた時にもう真っ暗で、学校に出る8時前とかもすごい真っ暗だったんですけど、今はちょっと明るさが出てきて、で日が照っていて、だんだんと気持ちいい季節になってきました。
So, I mean, actually, warmer weather is really quite important for people with no money at the moment. We're lucky with this house because it's well insulated, and we have these quite large glass windows which get a lot of direct sunlight, so it gets quite warm in here, particularly on summer days. I mean, now it's
そう今もすごい暑すぎて窓を開けてるぐらいなんですよ。
27.5 degrees without the heating on.
そう、ヒーターつけなくてそのぐらい暖かくなるんですよね、この家は。
じゃあ、
はい、じゃあそういうことで、またイギリスに関して聞きたいこととか何か話してほしいトピックとかがあればコメントによろしくお願いします。ではまた次の動画でお会いしましょう。さようなら。
sayonara.